Me doing art content on my art channel? No. But yeah, today I actually am going to be doing art content. So I am Clover and this is my art channel. For the past little while I've been doing gaming videos, talking videos, just things that are not art. Today I'm finally doing art. So what are we doing exactly? Well, basically recently I made a Herta cosplay, not the Herta, but like Herta puppet version, you know, from Honkai Star Rail. Yeah. So I made a cosplay of her in less than 24 hours, which I know sounds insane. It was insane. I had to work on tons of different things at the same time and multitask. It was a whole thing, but I think I just pulled it off. So watch the video, let me know what you think, leave a like, all that good stuff. I'm not gonna bore you with the details, but anyways. Hello, Editing Clover here. I have no clue how in the world I forgot to say this, but this video is also special for my 100 subscribers. Thank you so much for this. I genuinely was not expecting that. On the video I post expressing that I'm going away to take a break from YouTube, I get 100 subscribers from that. That's just, it's so crazy to me. I am so thankful. I really do appreciate it. I wrote a whole really heartfelt message on my community tab, so if you want to go check that out, go. But the point is I am so thankful. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed the video. So here we have two kind of bucket things. We have this black one and this white plastic bag. So we're gonna move the white plastic bag out of the way and take a look at the black bucket. So in here I have a ton of clothing items, some which I thrifted, which is why I threw scissors on the floor to cut the tags off, and then others I just found around my house. So the first one, we have this kind of dark gray vest. It's kind of nice. It has some sleeves and then some belt loops, which will honestly probably be kind of awkward to work with, but let's cut off the tag and maybe I'll be able to use it for something. I don't really know. Next we have these pants. Wait, pants? Herta wears a skirt. How am I gonna use pants in this? I don't know. They're also way too big for me, which is totally fine. I bought them from the thrift store. They were only $2. But yeah, I will not be using these as actual pants in the cosplay. I might use them for extra fabric if I have to sew something. I don't really know. I just thought, you know what, these are cheap, nice quality, might as well buy them and maybe I can use them for something. They're also really similar in color to the vest I have, so it should probably work. Next up we have this beret, and this is scary. It comes with a story because I have to use dye for this, and dye, I have never worked with dye, okay? This stuff is scary. If you mess it up, it gets literally everywhere. So I have to be very careful with this, and I have no clue what I'm doing, and it's gonna be awful. So yeah, that's scary. Anyways, moving on, let's cut off that tag and then continue on. Next up, we have this beautiful brown leather jacket. Let's just snip off that tag because I did also get this from the thrift store, and it's just such good quality, such a pretty color and everything, but I unfortunately don't think I'll be using it for the cosplay. It's just not going with the vision in my head, so let's get that out of here. Next, we have another kind of vest thing, which I also bought from the thrift store, so let's get rid of that tag again. So this is really pretty in my opinion. It's this beautiful, nice gray, and it's kind of has different colors of gray, and it's just really well detailed and really nice. I probably will end up using it, but we'll see, I guess. Anyways, on to the next thing. This is kind of like a vest. I did buy it from the thrift store, so let's just cut that off. So it's kind of rainbowy. It's really pretty, but Herta would never wear it, so this isn't actually for the cosplay. I'm probably just gonna keep it for myself, but I did buy this for a reason. It's because of the button. It would work so well for one thing that I want to do, so let's just kind of cut that off without ruining. Hi, I guess. This is my cat. Her name is Miko. She was just kind of watching from the side, so I'm just kind of letting her take a look around. But, anyways, yeah. Okay, bye. Anyways, let's continue cutting off that button without ruining the vest. So, there we have it. It is so beautiful, and I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. And don't worry, I won't waste the vest. I'm going to just kind of keep it for myself, because look at it. I would so wear it. Herta would not. So, anyways, next up we have these two kind of fabrics. One of them's a fabric, and the other one's a scarf that I bought from the thrift store. So, this is the first one. It's kind of this deep purple, which is really nice in my opinion, and then you can see they're kind of different shades, which is fine, but anyways, that one's a scarf, but it doesn't matter. I'll figure out what I'm doing with them later. So let's toss that to the side. Like I said, I bought this one from the thrift store, so let's go ahead and cut off that tag. Now let's go ahead and put everything back into the bucket, and now you're gonna get a live report from the scene. Bag and dye. So the dye, and we have this. So if you've ever gone to an art store, you know you don't just get the stuff you need. No one can do that. That's impossible. So here's the stuff. We got some stuff for the project, and then some stuff that's not for the project, like the twine and pipe cleaners and stuff. But anyways, let's take a look at what we got here. So we got some glitter glue, which is for the cosplay. It's nice, it's sparkly. We got ribbon, more ribbon, more ribbon, even more ribbon, and more ribbon. So that's all for the cosplay. The dye, which I already talked about, it's scary. These were just pretty, and I had to get them. Look at them, they're so pretty colors. I love them so much. Anyways, yeah, put that over there. This, which will be used for the cosplay, it's like some nice, cool thing. Can't see if anything's in frame, by the way, but anyway, pretty. Love it. And it will be used for the cosplay. Got this, which I might use for the cosplay. Not sure yet. Some gold paint, which I might be using. I also have other materials at home. Hot glue, obviously. This thing, which is not for the cosplay, it was just cool. You might see this in a future video, maybe. But yeah, it's glittery. Put a bit of a photo thing in there. Yeah. Lots, and I mean lots of different types of things, you know, for sewing the thread, which will be used for the cosplay. Some different sizes of buttons. They're cool. I know I'm holding them upside down, don't worry about that. This chain, which will be very important. I am going to just kind of rip that off though. Okay. So now we got this chain, pretty cool. And the button, put that over there. Elastic, which will be used. Some twine, which will not be used. Just looked cool, so got it. These, which I might use, I'm not really sure if I will be able to use them, but they were on sale and they look cool. Elastic, which is always great. I like elastic. I'm gonna put it back in the thing there. Also, my cat is watching this entire thing. Zipper, which we might be using, and some black string. So that's what we have. Now, for the hard part. The first thing I want to do. This. I am frankly scared of this. This is going to be scary. We're gonna do it anyway, so let's go. Get it done. Also, I'm so sorry if this video is like rushed and stuff. It's going to be messy. This is going to be messy. This whole thing's gonna be messy. I'm making this in less than 24 hours, so yippee! Hello! Welcome to my kind of crummy basement. I know I look like a mess right now. We're gonna be working with dye, so don't question it. Basically, I have no clue how this stuff works. I should probably read about it first. I don't know how much you can see. Is this good? This is a decent angle. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna open it. Oh, it's powder. Okay, how do I do this? Okay, basically, I read the instructions. I'm not gonna follow them. I kind of am, kind of. Basically, the instructions said to add a very specific amount of water, which is why I had a measuring cup. But based on experience and just what I know about art and dye, I didn't really think the water would be enough to fully submerge the hat, which is what we would want. So I just kind of started to like figure things out, put things around, and then I read the instructions one last time just to make sure I knew what I was doing, and then I added the water. Then I had the recommended amount of water, so I started to get ready to kind of add the dye. So I didn't know where my plastic gloves were at the point, so I just used elastics to kind of fix plastic bags onto my hands, which obviously wasn't the best, but at this point it was the best I could do. Then I opened the dye and poured it in, and the water immediately turned dark brown, which was really good. So I just kind of let it sit for a bit while trying to figure out how to dispose of the package, and then I added a bit more water because, like I said, I don't think that's gonna be enough. Like, just by looking at it, it wouldn't have been enough to get the hat all the way in. I was about to dye the hat, but then I realized, wait, I'm gonna need this to hang somewhere, so how is that gonna work? So I quickly and frantically made this weird mechanism consisting of elastic bands, a popsicle stick, and a clothes hanger to try and get it to hang. After that, I just kind of dunked the hat straight into the dye. So then I just kind of started to scrunch the hat, and I did that for a while because the package had to kind of agitate it, so I was like, scrunching is probably good enough. And eventually I started to realize, wait, I think there's water in the plastic bags. I continued for a little bit until I was like, no, yeah, there's definitely water in these, which means there's probably dye all over my hands, which is really not good. So then I went and I took the plastic bag off after contemplating what to do. And voila, I had dye absolutely all over my hands. Obviously, this was not good because I had to be in cosplay tomorrow, so what the heck am I going to do about my hand? What if I just kind of scoot the bowl over and try and wash my hand with one hand while I scrunch the hat? that actually ended up working, so I just continued doing that for a long time. I kid you not, I was doing this for like probably 30 minutes non-stop. It was not fun, but I had to do what I had to do, you know? So I just continued with that for a while until my hand finally started to look a little more like normal and less dyed. But then I kind of realized, wait, I think there might be dye in the other bag too, because I've been scrunching this for a while. So I took the bag off, and yeah, my hand was covered in dye. So I just went back to washing my hands, and I also kind of cleaned up. I cleaned up some of the plastic bags and stuff like that before I got another one and put it on top and kind of scrunched the hat, just trying to get it submerged so that I can just focus on washing my hands. So I kid you not, the footage you are watching right now is at 32 times speed, almost 33 times speed. Like, I washed my hands so much for so long and so aggressively, it was not fun, but I was seeing progress, which is fine, but like, holy, it took forever. But anyways, I continued that for a little while longer before finally deciding to deal with the hat again. So the way it said to cure it was to kind of rinse it in cold water. So I got another plastic bag to kind of like touch the hat and get it out of the water so that I could put cold water, because you know, you dyed in warm water and then you rinse it in cold water to get it to kind of sit. So I poured out the rest of the water, took the hat, put it back in, and filled it up with some cold water. And this time I was not messing around. I got out several plastic bags just so that it wouldn't bleed through and get all over my hands again. And then I just kind of scrunch it, trying to get some of the excess dye out. I repeat the same process of rinsing it, scrunching it, and then pouring out the water a few more times before I just decide, you know what, okay, we're making a lot of progress. I'll just go in with my hands now. You can see I do have the tap on for a little bit, but then I turn it off, just trying to get all the water out so that I can start to try and hang this thing. So I try and use my contraption, but it doesn't really work the best. Like, it takes a lot of fiddling around to finally get it to work. And even when I do get it to work, it's drying like in a really awkward position. And I don't exactly think I want it to dry like that, because it just won't work. So I try a few other things. I scramble around and try and see if I can do something with this popsicle stick to get it to stand up. But I decide what's best is to just kind of flip the bowl around and let it dry kind of like that, because then it won't dry in an awkward shape. And I decide to just leave it in the sink because I don't have much space. Plus, the other members of my household told me to specifically do it in the sink so that I don't get dye everywhere. But anyways, I just kind of clean up the sink, scrunch out the plastic bags a little bit, try and clean stuff up, and I just kind of like sit them there to dry. I'll probably throw them out once they're dry, but I don't want to throw them out right now. But anyways, I'm sure you're bored of all that dyeing. Don't worry, I am too. Like, editing this has not been fun. So let's move on to something a little more fun, shall we? Let's get a live report from Clover. There's two of them. So this one's longer and has like the laser look and stuff, and I like it. And it does not have sleeves, which will be important later on. This one, however, has those weird awkward holes for belt, obviously. And then it also has short sleeves, not long ones, but short. So this one is not going to work as well as this one will. So this is the one we're going to be using. Now that the beret is sitting, I want to mess with this, and then we're going to get sewing. With the way the chain is right now, it's connected in one place, kind of causing there to be a loop. But I need this to be one full big strand. So what we're going to have to kind of do is unclip some of the chains and then just kind of rearrange it so that it's in a line. I don't normally work with metal and stuff like this, but honestly, I've done a few things like this before when having to fix jewelry, so I don't think it'll be too hard, especially because the loops are fairly big. I think it'll be fine. So you can see me just kind of pulling it apart there, but there are like two little chains that are just kind of dangling on, so I'm going to kind of rip those off and reattach them at the end. It takes me quite a bit of time, but I do eventually get the chain off, but like, yeah, it took a long time. But now that it's off, I just need to kind of put it at the end. However, I did kind of break one of the chains, so we're just going to kind of put that to the side, or maybe I'll use it. I don't really know, but let's just try and fasten these ones on first. It takes me quite a bit of time, but eventually I do get it all in one nice long straight line. I decided that was good, so I just kind of admired my work for a little bit, but I did end up throwing out the little extra chain that would have gone on the end because it was pretty broken. But anyways, now that this is good, I'm just going to clean some stuff up and then get on to sewing. And when we start sewing, you'll get another live report from Clover. Okay, listen, here's what up. That is a little slanted. I know it is. I don't care. I'm tired and I gotta work on this. So, here's what's going on. This needs sleeves. I don't remember how long, but this thing right here, we're gonna give it sleeves that go to maybe about there. I need to try this stuff on and see if it works and check some stuff, but that's the plan. My plan is to use the pants as fabric to make sleeves for the vest. So let's lay those out flat, but I'm also going to need to use some of the fabric from the pants later on, so we'll have to try and salvage some of it. But anyways, let's get cutting this. First things first, we're gonna wanna kind of pull the pants nice and inside out so that I can kind of cut at the seams. But first we wanna get rid of those nasty tags because we will not be needing those. So now I'm just gonna kind of cut along the seam to try and like salvage as much fabric as possible while still cutting them apart. So then I just keep carefully cutting at the seams for a while, making sure I go all the way around until I have nice two separate pant legs. But like I said, we're going to be needing some fabric later on in the project, so I'm going to only use one of the pant legs right now. So then you can see me just kind of plan out where I want to make my cuts because I can't exactly use the top of the pants because, you know, it has like top of pants stuff and I just need fabric. And then I also need two sleeves, so I'm going to cut the extra piece in half. And once I was finally done cutting those apart, I had two separate sleeves. So now I'm going to kind of have to sew them and kind of hem them and stuff, but I don't really want to do that right now because, you know, I want to finish cutting fabric first. So let's get this other piece of fabric I need and cut the second part of the sleeves. So if you've seen Herta, she kind of has these like half sleeves. They're not full, but they're not short either. They're kind of like mid-length. So what we're going to do is they're kind of two-tone. They have this gray part at the top and then a white part, which is kind of like folded. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the same amount of fabric and then later on I'm just going to kind of fold them in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of the sleeves and make sure the white part that I'm cutting is approximately the same width, and then we're just going to cut it into one nice long piece of fabric and then cut that in half just like we did for the sleeves. But before we go ahead and do that, we're just going to have to get all of this extra white fabric out of here. And yes, I know I have a lot of white fabric, but I tend to use it a lot. But anyways, let's get that out of here. And just like I said, we are going to finish cutting those two apart, and now we are going to go to the sewing machine. Since the pieces of the pants were different sizes and I need to use them for sleeves, which is the same thing, I need them to be closer in size. So what I did is I put them on top of each other and then I just kind of did a stitch along the side of the other pant piece so that I could kind of have them the same size. I know I didn't explain that right, but trust me, it was an important step. Basically, because of the stitch I did, we have a ton of just extra fabric hanging off the side. And after I cut all of that off, which you can see me doing here, it will be exactly the same size as the other piece, which is what we want. So now I'm going to take the white piece of the sleeves, which is really just two squares of white fabric on top of each other, and sew them together so that they're more one piece. Then I'm going to cut off the excess fabric, and then we're going to do it all again on the other side. So we're just going to flip the fabric over, get the machine ready, and start sewing. So I just want to explain something real quick. This is at pretty high speed, just like the hand washing. Sewing takes a while. Like cosplay making and stuff takes a while. So yeah, this is pretty sped up, just because I don't want this video to be like an hour too long. But anyways, I was also having a bit of trouble with my machine because whose machine doesn't like do really weird things once in a while? So I kind of had to cut some stuff off and figure it out, but it ended up being fine, so don't worry about it. So I just finished up that last little bit of sewing on the sleeve, and then I went ahead and cut off all the excess fabric. Aren't you glad that's done? Well, good, I'm glad. There's a whole nother sleeve. We have to do the exact same thing. 2 more seams, 2 more trimmings, yep, the whole thing all over again. But oh, my dearest viewer, I'm sure you don't want to be bored to death with that, so why don't I stop talking for a second, put on some fun music, and you just watch like a quick little montage of it. Wait, hold on a second. You're telling me you don't like that music? Okay, why don't I just let you listen to the music that's in the background of the video? That's fine, right? Okay, and montage over. We're on to the next step. Did you miss me? Well, I hope you did, because either way I'm going to be talking. So now what we're going to do is we have to figure out how to connect these two. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do it the same way you'd sew a sleeve. So I'm going to put one piece inside of the other, and then I'm going to lift up a little part, and then just sew along that little ring so that when you pull it apart, it looks like it's all just one big piece. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, I'd recommend looking stuff up because, like, this is not a tutorial video. This is Clover messing around with fabric. Those are very two different things. Not a tutorial. Got that? Okay, now that we have that established, I'm just gonna finish this up and then I'll show you what I meant. So basically, when you kind of pull it apart, you can kind of see there's the white and the gray piece. Obviously, it's not the prettiest, but it works. It's not the easiest to see in this scene, but this is me kind of folding it and kind of showing off how I want it at the end. Obviously, I messed up that seam being on the outside, but whatever. It's good enough. So anyways, we have to do this entire process again of sewing it all around because 2 sleeves. So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of things in sewing are like that because, you know, there's 2 legs, 2 arms, stuff like that. But anyways, now that that part of the sewing's done, we're gonna have to kind of hem the sleeve so that it will sit the way I want it to. So let's go ahead and do that. So obviously I ended up having to do this 2 times because, you know, there's 2 sleeves. But the footage for the second one is really messy because my arm was in the way for a lot of it. And also it just, like, I was having a lot of trouble with my sewing machine. So yeah, now I'm just gonna trim this up and then we'll continue on to the next thing. So now we're gonna be sewing the sleeve into the sleeve hole, which honestly is really difficult. I had to use pins to hold it in place, and I normally never do that. Also, I know my arm's in the way for some of this. I'm so sorry about this. But anyways, this is like a really tricky thing to do because you have to make sure you're sewing on the right thing and nothing else, or else it can really mess you up. Again, if you don't know much about sewing, please look this up. Don't use my video as a tutorial. This is not a tutorial. I will say it again if I have to. Shortly, I realized that my bobbin had run out, so, you know, I had to kind of replace that, which was not fun, but once I had taken care of that, things went smoothly again. I just changed it to a random different color because what I'm doing right now won't be visible anyway, so it's fine. So, after what felt like pretty much forever, I finally finished sewing all the way around the sleeve, and I just did a little bit of trimming, and then was ready to move on to the next thing, which was, of course, the next sleeve, so we have to do it all again. So I'm gonna speed this up quite a bit just so that you don't have to sit through the whole thing. My arm's in the way for some of it, not all of it, but like, yeah, this is a very not fun thing to do, and I'm sure it's a very not fun thing to watch, so just know that the feeling's mutual. I don't like doing this part, and I'm sure it's not fun to watch. It's just, there's so much fabric in your face when you're connecting like 2 pieces. Like when you're just doing a simple hem, there's like a little bit of fabric in your face, but it's manageable. But this, everything is everywhere, and it's so hard to like get done what you need to get done. But anyways, so after all that was done, I just went ahead and trimmed off any excess fabric just so that the sleeves wouldn't be too uncomfortable to wear. And now's probably a good time to tell you that I only half sewed the sleeves to leave room for twill. That's right, there's like frilly things, not twill, but like it's little frilly things on the edge of Herta's shirt, and also she has her shoulder showing. So I had to make sure to leave space so that my shoulder would still be visible and I could add the frill, which is what we're going to be adding next. Now, I'd love to show you more footage of this part, but unfortunately my arm was in the way for a good portion of it, so here's the few parts of the footage that are actually like visible and you can actually see what I'm doing, and even in them my arm is blocking it a little bit, but I swear the other clips were worse. Obviously, I sewed a lot more of the frilly things to it than you see, but here you can kind of see the style change, or like the way the camera's position changed, and that's because now I'm kind of sewing them along the neckline because Herta also has frills along the neckline, and yeah, I was sewing a lot of frills, but I don't want to make you watch all of it because oh my gosh, it was a lot. And I'm sure what you're watching right now already seems like a lot, and that's because it is, but trust me, there was so much more. You will see at the end just how much frill there is on this outfit. It might not look like a lot, but remember, sewing takes a lot of time, so I'm sure you can imagine the ungodly amount of time I spent just sewing on frills, because it was a lot. It was way too much, like way more than it should have been. Anyways, enough with the frills, let's move on to the next thing. So now we're going to be working on Herta's cape, so we're going to need the pant leg, and then also some scissors, and then also the purple fabric. So now that we have all of that, we're just going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of cut the pant leg at the other seam. So I already cut it like kind of at the middle seam, but now I'm going to cut one of the places where the leg is like sewn together so that I kind of have it unfolded, and then I'm going to cut it again so that it's like 2 separate pieces, because again, we're making the cape and it kind of has like 2 little pointy things, so yeah, we're going to need to cut this so that we have 2 separate pieces of fabric. Then I took a bit of a break to try and figure out how exactly is this going to work, like how am I going to attach this to the outfit. Once I finally had an idea, I took the pants and I flipped them around. After straightening the pants out a little bit, I decided to just cut off the good portion of the top, and don't worry, I will be using that fabric for another project or something. I saved most of the fabric scraps that I have just in case I ever need them. After that, I took the purple fabric and put it underneath the pants so that I could kind of use the pants as almost like a stencil for cutting the purple fabric. Then I also kind of had to cut the quote-unquote stencil so that it would be more of a point, because again, Herta's kind of cape thing is pointy and that's what we need. So the idea here is that I'm gonna sew the purple part onto the gray part and then put wire in it so that it kind of keeps its shape and I can kind of mold it around if I need to. So now we just have the cape kind of inside out so that I'm gonna be able to sew around the edges, and then when I flip it inside out, it'll be on the right side. Then I'll be able to put the wire in it after molding it, and then I can sew it to the thing. Because what I decided to do is I'm just gonna kind of sew these onto the back of kind of the blazer thing, because I feel like that would be the best way to do it. So this is me just finishing up the second one, and now we are going to be messing around with wire. So what we're gonna have to do is mess around with it, but it should be fine. But anyways, so we're gonna kind of have to move this around, and then we're gonna have to use the wire and kind of manipulate it and mold it so that it's around the same shape as the cape. Because the wire that I'm using is very malleable, it's very easy to bend. You can see me there just moving it around, so it shouldn't be any trouble at all trying to do this, but just trying to get it to the right shape could take a little bit of time. So you can see me just fiddling it with it here. It's not the easiest to see what I'm doing, but it's because it wasn't the easiest thing to do in such a small amount of space. So then I just take care of the second one, same process, but this time I already kind of know what I need to do, so I have a bit of a better understanding, so it doesn't take near as long. Then I just go ahead and snip off the excess wire, which wasn't too easy, but it was easy enough. And then after that, I just stack the two on top of each other and get them out of here. Now, it's not the easiest to see what I am doing here, but I'm just kind of placed and pinned the pieces of the cape onto the inside of the vest, and then I'm just kind of sewing them on the inside using a thread that won't show on the outside. I definitely could have done this whole thing a lot more nicer, and it's not even the easiest to see in the footage, but this whole thing was kind of difficult to do. So again, trying to get the best footage when you're like doing something which is really difficult, not always worth it. Now that that's finally done, we're gonna go and take a look at the hat. So it seems pretty good, nice and dry. I left it to dry overnight. That's right, I said I made it in less than 24 hours, so yes, I did sleep somewhere in between this. But anyway, I'm just gonna try and get the rest of the water out and do whatever I can, and then we're just going to bring it back upstairs. But first, I'm gonna have to wash my hands a ton because I got dye on them from squeezing out the excess dye, so you know. But after that, we'll go upstairs. So now we're just gonna be finishing up some of the final accessories. So I did decide to use these little gold tassels, and what I kind of want to do with them is kind of try and make a rectangle out of them somehow so that I can use them for the lock, because I have no clue how else I'm gonna do that. You know how Herta has this huge lock on her? Yeah, so we'll see what we can do with that. After a little while, I was pretty happy with how it was turning out, but I also had just made a huge mess, so I kind of just had to clean that up real quick just so that I had like a nice clean space to work. Then I went and got the chain so I could kind of plan out how I was gonna fix this on to make it look like Herta. I decided to use a safety pin and then just kind of attach it like that, but I did that off camera. Now that that's done and planned out, we are going to move on and start working on the hat and its accessories. So I know I said we wouldn't be using the pipe cleaners, but we're going to use the purple ones because we have to make flowers for Herta's hat. But first of all, we are going to use some pen to kind of mark around the side, which means we don't need the pipe cleaner. So now I'm just going to shake the pen aggressively to activate it because it is a fabric pen. And then I'm obviously going to have to simplify the design that Herta has on her beret because it's very complex, but I'm just going to kind of roughly do it. I tried my best to make sure I was keeping some of the same elements, but also because I was using a fabric pen on like a felty surface, I had a piece of paper beside me so that I could kind of get the pieces of felt off so that I could keep drawing with the pen. And my cat also came and watched me at one point, not really sure when that was. She was watching the whole time, but she came on camera for a bit, and I was just really locked in and just keeping to try and focus on the hat. So, you know how earlier I said the hat and its accessories? Yeah, we have to work on accessories for the hat, so let's just get out all of our materials, and there's a lot of them. And this is all just for making the ribbons that go on Herta's hat, because they're pretty detailed, so obviously we need a lot of materials so that we can add a lot of details. So you can see I pulled out my phone in the corner, just making sure that I'm doing the right thing. So I start by cutting 2 different sizes of lengths of ribbon, and then we're gonna have to cut points into them later, but let me just check and make sure. I just want to cut a little bit of extra ribbon because the way that Herta's ribbons look is that they have that kind of white board all over them. So I needed extra to kind of put on the insides of the points, but let's cut the points so that it kind of makes more sense what I'm talking about. So we're just going to cut little triangles so that it kind of looks like the ribbon has 2 points, kind of like the classic ribbon look, because that's what Herta's hat has. And then we're just going to do that on the other one as well. And then I just kind of try and mess around and figure out how am I going to attach these. Oh, I know, I'll do it with hot glue, but my hot glue gun was currently heating up, so I thought I'd work on something else in the meantime. So now we're just going to take this fabric scrap I have, cut some of the lining, because this was the only piece of fabric I had that was the right color, cut it into a block, and then in half to have 2 strips.
strips, and then we'll work with this later to make the 2 final ribbons. But for now, let's kind of just work on the key lock again. So you know how I made that weird rectangle? Yeah, so that's the key lock. We need a keyhole for the key lock so that you can insert the key into the key lock, but it's not functional. It's just like, we just need a piece of paper basically that looks like a keyhole enough, and then I'm just gonna cut that out because I just used Sharpie and pencil to make it, and then I'm just gonna glue that on, and I'd say that looks pretty good. I'm holding it upside down, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So now we're just gonna go back to working on the ribbons for the hat. So we're just gonna take the excessive pieces of ribbon that I cut out, and we're just gonna cut them to the right size and then glue them on. The footage you're watching is pretty sped up because I wanted to make sure I was making the ribbons look as good as I possibly could. Now, I don't know what happened here, but I seem to have lost some of my footage. Don't worry, you didn't miss much. It was just me finishing up the second pieces of ribbons and then finishing some details on the hat and making some flower petals too. But you really didn't miss much, I promise. So those are the flower petals I made. I need to make some of them purple, and then that's the twine that I use for the hat. We don't need to use it now though. So there's a lot of petals here, and that's because one of them's for the hat and then 2 of them are for the back of Herta's outfit. So I'm just gonna plug in my hot glue gun so that we can work on making the flower petals purple while that heats up. So I'm just gonna use a makeup palette and brush to just kind of try and make them purple. You can see it's not really the exact same shade of purple, but I really did my best with what I had. I didn't really know what else to do because the pack of the purple pipe cleaners was limited, so I ran out of enough. I probably could have made the flowers smaller or something, but whatever. I kind of accidentally ended up ruining my eyeshadow palette a little bit. I just kind of got the purple stuff everywhere. It's not that big of a deal, and I honestly really don't mind that much, so whatever, it's fine. But yeah, this was kind of messy, and I did have to clean the floor afterwards because I got eyeshadow like all over it. Anyways, let's move on to the next step of making the flowers. So we're gonna use this kind of like sparkly white pipe cleaners to kind of make the inside of the flower. So I'm gonna cut them up later and stuff, but first let's start with gluing the flowers all together, and then we'll worry about the little inside pieces. I started with the bigger pieces first, and then I moved on to the smaller ones, and I was trying to make sure I made them as nice as possible and glued them properly, just so that they looked really nice. Once that was all done, I started to cut and shape the ends of the white pipe cleaners to kind of make them look like they had little pieces on the end, because you know, inside the flowers they kind of have like this little stem thing and then a little dot with the pollen. So I tried to kind of replicate that just by twisting the top of the pipe cleaners to turn them into little balls. But I can't show you me gluing those on. Oh no, that would be spoiling the final reveal. Just kidding. I lost more of my footage. I really don't know what happened. I am so sorry about that, but I hope it didn't impact the video overall too much. But anyways, let's take a look at the final outfit.
Okay, hello. I apologize if I'm like kind of off-centered or anything like that. I don't have anyone working the camera right now, but anyways, here's the fit. I'm pretty happy with it. So the white thing is just something I already owned. I kind of manipulated it a little bit to like look proper. But anyways, I did my nails for this. I did not need to do that. It took way too long to dry. And then I did the makeup. It's smudging a little bit. I also did it on my shoulders and knees if you can see that. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. Turned out pretty good for less than 24 hours. So let's just take a little tour, show you some of the stuff I like, don't like, and things I did while you weren't here. Like when I turned the camera off, because my camera's running out of storage, so can record everything, like especially at the end. But anyways, here, this is attached by safety pins here, here, and here, so that's pretty cool. I think I showed me gluing this, but like I love the hat so much. It looks so cute. Also, I know I don't have a light. We're not gonna talk about that, okay? Anyways, the tail looks pretty good, but I worked on this back thing. So I know the flowers don't look the best right now. That's because I went to the mall in this outfit before recording this, so you know, sitting and stuff, so like they don't look good. But anyways, these little 2 tail bits. I don't think I recorded that part, but yeah, I definitely had to simplify the overall Herta outfit for like so that I would like work, and that I could actually manageably do it in under 24 hours. But I think this turned out pretty well. Like definitely the back portion I had to simplify a lot, but I think the front and other things look pretty good. So overall I am happy with it. I had tons of people compliment my outfit because like I said, I went to the mall in this and there was like so many people complimenting my outfit. Also sorry, my necklace, it's attached here with a safety pin. I know you can see that. Don't worry about it. But anyways, so this I just kind of tuck into the necklace, so if that falls off, that's why. Anyways, whew, it's pretty comfortable, the outfit, but it's like, I don't know, it's a little much. I don't know. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know what you think. I'm gonna do a little quick spin. Yeah, so here it is. And if you want me to be extra fancy, I will do the Herta spin. I was practicing, my knee just cracked. You heard that, right? Anyways, also I was spinning the wrong way. The Herta spin, like, you know, her idol, yeah. It's so awkward to do because like I can't just rotate, but I practiced that. Yay! I know I'm a dork, but it's okay. I look cool and that I feel cool, so it's all good. Anyways, you can probably tell I'm a little out of it. I'm so tired because this project takes so much energy. Oh my gosh, but anyways. I think for less than 24 hours, I did pretty good. Let me know what you think. I think I look absolutely fabulous, but yeah, I will see you next time. Bye!